Right. How to get over fear and anxiety when climbing. Right. This is the last climb I had where I felt fear and uncertainty in every step, every spike, every hand movement, every decision up here. Like, it was just extremely uncomfortable. And this tree was only about like 45 feet tall. It was not big. It was in a safe spot to where I could just limb it up, drop a small top, fairly straightforward. But for some reason, it was just crippling anxiety. And so, in order to fix this, in order to treat this, I started climbing up 60 to 70 foot pines multiple times a day for months until things finally clicked. I started climbing these trees from a friend. He owned some property, and so I just went to his place, started climbing his trees, on my own time, on my downtime. And the more I did it, the more I put myself in the situations where it was the feeling of fear, not actually being in a fearful position or an uncertain like position where like I could potentially die. I was confident my rope would hold me. I was confident my equipment was safe, and I was confident what I was roped on, or what my bridge, what my steel core lanyard was like over. I knew everything would hold me. The only thing I was fighting was that internal fear. And I got over it. For some reason, I don't know how, but just things clicked. All of a sudden, that fear became mental alertness. It was a beautiful transition to being comfortable with being uncomfortable up there. It's always going to be uncomfortable, but I got to the point where like, wow, this is it. Doing something hard became easy because you kept on doing the hard thing. And why this is relevant? Why is overcoming fear and anxiety when climbing relevant? Well, it's a blanket of doubt, and it affects the most basic of logic. For example, if I'm taking a top and I wanted to fall in a certain direction, what variables do I have to consider to make that happen? Right? When I'm cutting, I'm not saying, I hope this happens. Every thought, every movement, every action I take is controlled. Everything is controlled. Right? So when you're up there, you have to decide like, okay, is the limb weight there? Is the trunk weight in the right direction? Is the lean good? Is the wind, will it affect, how it falls in the opposite direction of where I'm trying to drop the top? How far the top will drop away from the base? Is my face notch correct? Is my back cut clean? Do I need a rope in it? There's all these variables you need to consider, all right? And that can't happen if your mind is clouded with anxiety and fear. Like just recently, I saw this guy on YouTube. He posted a climb where the top fell on him because where he dropped it hit another tree, so he got hung up, and then the base of his top caught in his lap, and then luckily, it mostly hit. The weight was probably mostly on his lanyard, and then it just kind of tumbled off. But it was such an easy thing to notice. Like, I'm dropping it here, it's gonna hit the top. That's probably, it might come back at me. It was just an easy thing to figure out. But if you look at certain videos with climbers, you can tell that they're breathing hard, either because they're out of breath or fear, and you could see it in some of those videos. But then you see the pros who are just so comfortable up there, like August Hunicke or Guilty of Treason, where they're just it's actually scary how relaxed they are up there. That being that relaxed is scary. There should always be a hint of fear to keep you alert, but they're just animals at this. So a place to start figuring out all these things, you know, it's just starting with the basics. Don't just go up in a tree if you don't know how to, chainsaw wood on the ground, right? Or how to drop small stars. And don't just, start climbing, not knowing the basics of how to do the rest of the stuff, right? You could start off dropping the small spars, cutting the wood on the ground, understanding the relationship between the hinge, face notch, and back cut. And the reason the basics are important is because all this stuff, it will kill you. Even limbing a tree on the ground, for example, like a limb can be compressed under the whole weight of the tree that you just fell, or your boss just fell. And when you cut it, that compressed limb against the ground, it could whip back into your fucking skull, right? Or like an example that I've seen is when you're chipping a log and the log catches the feed wheel in such a way where it just like, it snaps upright. It's like a fucking solid log snapping upright. It could catch your jaw because your body's over, what you're chipping. I almost saw a guy where his jaw would have been in his brain if he was an inch closer to the log he shoved into the chipper. There's a lot of stuff I gotta see where it was almost, but I was thankful I didn't have to see that shit. And there's stuff that that I've learned along the way where like, don't fucking do it. Oh my god, I got lucky. It was an act of God where like I'm still here. So keep in mind that this shit will kill you. Learn the basics. Knowing exactly what's going to happen before it happens is probably how you will successfully conduct this shit. And just to finish off, being mentally alert and physically fit are extremely important. The best advice is knowing what will happen before it happens. Considering all the variables and then executing, everything is controlled. There's no, I hope it might work or it might work. Everything is controlled.